So in the near term, again, Bay Area employment growth will outpace the state and the U.S. So that's what these set of charts shows. So in the period 2007 to 2020, the Bay Area economy is going to grow 11.4%. This is California is the red, and the green is the U.S. So 11.4 is the Bay Area, 9.2 for California, and 8.8 for the nation. And you can see that the Bay Area continues through 2010 to 2020. We're still a little bit above, and then it sort of levels out between 2020 and 2040. And some of this big jump is because we're growing so much faster now than the rest of the country. The commercial real estate market in San Mateo and northern Santa Clara County is on fire. It's jumping across to the East Bay. So you may not necessarily feel the push. It's not the same in every region every county of the region, but it's definitely here, and you see it reflected in the numbers. Now, population growth will also have some significant implications, which is also very, very interesting. Now, this shows Bay Area population growth by age group also and by decade. Whoop! I get so excited with these clicker things that, okay. So these are people who are in the 0 to 14 age group. I know there is nobody here tonight, I think I can safely say, in that age group. Although sometimes people drag their poor kids to these kinds of meetings. Here's the 15 to 34 age group. I won't bust anybody out by asking them to say whether or not they're in that group, but here's the 35 to 54, 55 plus. I think a lot of us are probably in this 55 plus, if you don't mind my saying so. So here's what happened. Blue is 2010 to 2020, and look, in the 35 to 54, which is prime childbearing age, this is really when households are in the midst of going to all those soccer games, and see, Danielle, this is what you have to look forward to. In my household, it was softball. I had a fast pitch softball player. So in the next few years, and even through 2030, this segment of the population is basically going to be declining in size. And look what happens. Us old folks are going to be growing in size. So what this means is that new households that are getting started and that are going to have school-age children and that are going to be looking for housing that they're going to want to move into are going to be shrinking. And in the meantime, for those of us who might want to sell our single-family house, get rid of the big backyard like Mike, who's tired of mowing, are going to have a hard time finding somebody to sell our house to. So this is what the demographer at USC, Dowell Myers, calls the silver tsunami, because all of us older people are going to have a hard time finding younger people who want to live in single-family homes. So what this means is that we have to rethink the kind of housing that we are supplying, because the demand, you know, the baby boomers, we created a huge demand as we moved through this pipeline, but all this housing was built to satisfy us. And now, hang on one second. You know what? I'm going to go through my presentation to take all the questions at the end. Okay, so jot your question down. Don't forget. But now what's happening is we have the building supply for single-family homes, and mostly what we're going to need to be thinking about is this 15 to 34 year-old demographic, many of whom don't have children. You know, people are delaying getting married. I keep trying to convince my son that getting married is a good idea. He's a lovely girlfriend, and I think, you know, but can't say anything. So, but anyway, those people are delaying, and they're also interested in living in urban settings longer. Now, we don't know what's going to happen when they do start getting married and having kids, if they are going to jump out to the single-family homes, but so far they haven't. So far, those young people are staying in urban settings. And in the meantime, seniors, empty nesters are the ones who are really driving housing demand in many places for more dense housing. I was in Fresno a couple of weeks ago, and Fresno thought they have no demand for loft living, downtown loft living. They thought, no way ever. And then a few developers have bravely taken this on, and they had an open house for their lofts. And guess who showed up? It was all baby boomers. No one expected that. They all thought it would be the young hipsters. But the young people in Fresno couldn't afford some of those units, but guess who? So anyway. So again, this is the point that I was making before about the decline in the 35 to 54 and the increase in the 55 to 74, particularly in the next 10 to 15 years. So this is going to really shape our housing market. So these are the demographic trends. And I'm going to talk now a little bit about the employment transit in the SCS. And full disclosure, we did work for SMART on some of their early station area planning. So I have been involved with the SMART corridor. So employment centers are becoming much more central to how transportation planners are thinking. And the reason for this is because although work trips, the commute trip is only 20% of total trips, you know, all the trips you take every day, your trip to work and then your trip home is a small percentage. You know, you still are going to the grocery store or maybe going to a meeting like this or whatever. But the thing is that 60% of trips on transit are commute trips. So when we think about how to build a robust transit system, it's really important to think about connecting jobs and housing. How many of you are familiar with the term transit-oriented development? So about half of you. So that's development that's built near transit that makes it easy for people to ride transit. And when a lot of people talk about transit-oriented development, people immediately imagine dense housing and mixed-use development and people walking around and going to cool coffee shops and stuff like that. But really, that's one end of the trip. If you don't have the other end of the trip, which is your job, transit's not that useful. So transit, in order to really be useful and for people to really want to ride it, it really works best if it connects up what we call origins, where people start their trip, with destinations where they end their trip. And the thing is that we build our highway systems for what we call the peak hour. So we build our highway systems for the commuter, and they come out looking like this, which is not that pedestrian friendly, it's not that bike friendly. And a lot of times what we really want are places like this. I mean, we just walked down to downtown Mill Valley for dinner, and you know, there are a lot of kids out there playing. You know, it's more like this. So, but if you had a big employment center in downtown Mill Valley and you built it like to accommodate the commute, it would look like this, and you'd lose your downtown. So not so great. Okay, so the factors that impact transit ridership, and this is if we doubled each of these variables, what would we get in terms of transit ridership? So service speed, this sort of makes sense. This one is very intuitive. If you double service speed, you can increase your transit ridership by 129%. But the really fascinating bar here on this chart, I think, is this second one, which is that if you increase job density near station areas, you increase ridership by 60%. That's more than if you double service frequency. It's more than if you double station area population density. It's more than if your gas prices double. And then these are the inverses. So it's more than if you're close to the CBD, the Central Business District. So this employment density thing is actually really important. And this is why it's becoming more integral to the sustainable communities strategy planning. Okay. So despite the importance of employment concentrations and transit, jobs have actually become more dispersed over the past 20 years. And this is true nationally. A lot of these are what we're talking about, national trends. It's interesting, there was somebody who published a report on transit and employment in California, and the Bay Area has the lowest amount of employment dispersal of any region in the state. Yay, Bay Area. We've done a good job with this. And some of it is because we are landlocked. And there's a lot more to say about this, but only if you have questions, because this is a topic I could go on about for quite a while. So nationally, in the U.S., we have